Okay, we're continuing with the book here, The German Genius History by Peter Watson, and we're going to be talking today about the Nazarene School of Art, and it relates to the English School of Art in the 1800s called the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood. The Nazarene School is really like the equivalent of the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood, but for Germany. Okay, and the Nazarene School started earlier. This painting is a very famous painting. This is Ophelia, and this painting was John Everett Millais, who painted it in 1852 in England. And I show it to you because the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood was saying we want to go back to the style and the emotion of painting before Raphael. It was more emotionally true, more religiously devoted, more true to nature. Okay, he just had this lady laying in his bathtub. She was a real famous actress. She actually caught a cold and he had to pay her extra because she got sick when the burners went out underneath his bathtub, John Everett Millais. Okay, so this idea of painting a famous painting. So Shakespeare was the great playwright of England, a throwback to the golden age of ancient Greece and Athens in the 400s BC. So for the Germans, their equivalent great writer was Goethe. Okay, so I'll show you what that means. Actually, I get to it later. I'm going to show you paintings by the Nazarenes. Okay, so what were the Nazarenes about? This painting is 1836. So they got going, the Nazarene School in Germany, before the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood in England. The Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood became super famous, and all the disciple painters are super famous in England. They actually got their ideas, a lot of them, from the Nazarene School in Germany. The Nazarenes likewise wanted to, instead of all this neoclassical ancient Greece stuff, they wanted to paint much more Christian paintings. And they wanted their paintings to be monumental, frescoes on the walls of churches, really big. And they did become very famous. They were admired throughout Europe, throughout Rome, Italy. All of these art critics loved them. This is a painting called The Last Judgment by Peter von Cornelius. And look at this. It's not quite as good as Michelangelo's Last Judgment, but it's up there. It's fantastic. It's artistically well done. It's aesthetically pleasing. The color scheme is great. The design, the figures, it's great. Okay, so this is what was happening with the Nazarene School of Art. And it's also, you can also call it a Gothic revival. They were very Catholic, whereas most of Germany is Lutheran. And Lutheranism, Lutherans, the Protestants in general, are not that good at art. But these are, the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood in England was predominantly Anglican, but they were still great at art. Here is Prometheus, and there was also the big Catholic revival in England at the time of the Victorian Renaissance. There was a whole Tractarian movement with Cardinal Newman. Okay, but this is a student right here, Heinrich Fugger, student of Anton Raphael Mengs, who I did last month. He was a neoclassical Enlightenment painter in Germany. And here is Prometheus stealing fire from Mount Olympus, from Zeus, and giving it to sleeping man. And that's part of mankind right at his origin, was to have fire. Okay, and that's sort of a neoclassical painting there, if you will. Here's a painting of Friedrich Wilhelm Scheidau, another Nazarene Catholic revival, German PRB, 1862. And again, you see these are big paintings filling a frame. You can stand up. The characters are almost life-size here. And this is the famous parable of the 5 wise virgins who have their lamps with oil ready, and then the 5 foolish virgins who weren't prepared for the coming of Christ, for their bridegroom, so to speak, for the last judgment, so to speak. There's Peter with the keys, the keys to heaven. Are you ready or are you not? Okay, so anyways, it's a beautiful painting. It's obviously, magnificent skill level. And they make you wonder, is this something from the 1600s or 1700s? Is this Baroque? Is this, Now here's the 3 Marys at the Tomb of Christ. Okay, this one's by Peter von Cornelius again. All these are Nazarene School of Art painters. And here's just to show you the scale of what they were doing. They're basically going back to this old style fresco monumental painting. They wanted their movement to become famous, and it did become very famous. And they painted big frescoes in art museums, big canvases. Wedding at Cana, Christ Turns Water into Wine by Julius Schnorr von Karlsfeld, 1891. German PRBs, German Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood. It's really the Nazarene School of Art, Catholic, Gothic revival. So it's rather beautiful stuff. Now here's the painting. I really should have put this one next to the Ophelia painting because it's the cultural equivalent. This is by, Ludwig Schnorr von Karlsfeld. And this is Gretchen praying to the crucifix of Christ Faust wants to go to her, but Mephistopheles, the devil, is pulling him away. And this is kind of like Ophelia. Gretchen's kind of driven to distraction, going crazy because of the bad behavior of Faust and all the trouble it's gotten her into, the sadness of it. Okay, just like in Hamlet, Hamlet inadvertently killed Polonius. Okay, her father, the father of Ophelia, whereas Faust, his bad behaviors led to the death of her mother. Okay, so there's a lot of strong parallels, and you have to remember that, Goethe just totally loved and admired Shakespeare. Okay, so I find it interesting that these things in German culture actually preceded all this famous stuff in English culture, and the English got their ideas largely from the Germans as far as these painters were concerned, and again, as far as the playwrights and the writers were concerned. So it's rather interesting. The English school is much more famous because John Ruskin, the great art critic in England, totally publicized the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood in England. His 1853 speech is magnificent. I've linked to it before. Versus these guys in Germany, they didn't have as much publicity. And also, the achievements of Germany after the United States fighting with them in World War I and World War II is they got silenced. So people don't know about them. I didn't know about these until I started studying about it. I mean, I knew, of course, about Goethe and Faust and all this, but I didn't know these painters. Okay, now one last thing, because I'm going from the book and I'm doing the history too, and the book's not just about art, it's about all German history. Here's the great Gauss. Okay, Gauss was one of the greatest mathematicians of all time. He is a super prodigy. His father was a laborer, his mother was illiterate, and he just had a brilliance for mathematics. Nobody knows where it came from. He did all kinds of pioneering things. Developed the Gauss curve, which is the normal distribution, which is, the bell curve. Okay, he developed the Fourier transform. He did all kinds of leading work in magnetism. The unit of magnetism, the Gauss, is named after him. He was an astronomer. He calculated the orbit of a missing planet, and they found it again once he calculated its orbit. He was very devout and religious, a Lutheran Protestant. There's good videos about him if you want to hear about his life. And I think all kids, when they're studying math, they should see videos of guys like Gauss because it inspires you to see the great achievements of your ancestors. It makes you want to do something great. And that's how you should learn math, through examples, through biographies. Biographies stick with the brain. Okay, he invented non-Euclidean geometry when you have non-parallel lines. He did a whole bunch of other incredible mathematical achievements. He figured out that every integer, greater than 1 could be formed by prime numbers, all kinds of things. And his father was a laborer, couldn't understand him. They actually eventually couldn't even get along because the father couldn't understand him. Okay, well anyways, that's it for today. I hope you found that helpful.